Today's topic is Revolutionizing Content Delivery, Promise of Next Generation Broadcasting, panel discussion. The broadcast revolution is underway, driven by next generation technologies that are fundamentally transforming how content is delivered. Our speakers are Victor Lee. Victor Lee is the director at Munhwa Broadcasting Corporation, MBC, South Korea's leading broadcaster. Christopher S. Ripley is the president and COO of Cineclear Inc., one of the largest telecommunications. Okay. And Madeline Noland is the president of ATSC, the organization responsible for the development and promotion of digital television standards in the US. Vinosh B. James is the director at Qualcomm India, specializing in cutting-edge technologies like 5G and wireless communication. Abhay Krandikar is the Secretary of Department of Science and Technology, DST, Government of India. He has been a prominent advocate of scientific research and technology policy in India. Apurva Chandraji, former Secretary, INB and Health Ministry.
I think let me be very brief so that we can just, first of all, a very warm welcome and good morning to all of you. As the topic suggests that revolutionizing the content delivery through the next generation direct-to-mobile broadcasting. As all of you know that in the last 3 decades in India, there has been a significant proliferations of mobile phones in the country. And in fact, the mobile phone has now become primary device for accessing the voice, for accessing the internet. And I'm confident that it will become the primary device for accessing the broadcasting contents in the near future as well. In fact, it has become now the device which 1.2 billion users are having with them. However, as far as the television broadcasting is concerned in India, the era of our country missed certain revolutions. So, for example, we did not have the ubiquitous connectivity of the landline phones. When the mobile telephony was introduced, India had a tele-density of about 1%, and today, now we have a tele-density of about 60%, and in urban areas it is more than 100%. That means, one user is having more than one phones. So similarly, I think in the broadcasting, we missed one era of having a digital terrestrial broadcasting. Several times, I think the Doordarshan and Prasar Bharati tried. But I think we can directly now leapfrog to the era of direct-to-mobile broadcasting by missing the digital television, traditional high-power transmitters transmitting to the bigger television frames. As you know that in India, the mobile data consumption is one of the largest in the world. We are having about per capita per month consumption is in the range of 25 GB to 30 GB. And this is less than even in the US and also in the China, where, it is in the range of 15 GB or so, around 15 GB. And about 70% of the mobile data consumption in India, so that means, almost, 15 to 20 GB is the OTT consumptions. And in that context, therefore, the direct-to-mobile broadcasting is really rightly poised to take off in a country like us, where we will be able to offload the OTT contents using the D2M technologies while providing a predictable user experience of normal internet access and web browsing on the cell phones using cellular mobile technology simultaneously. Over the years now, the technology has evolved significantly. In our country, I'm also delighted to say that Sankhya Lab took the pioneering initiative of designing indigenous chip in the country. And now they have won the design wins. We can soon have the devices available. So therefore, the only challenge that existed was the availability of the device, which is now going to go away. And with that, I really don't see any other major obstacles in having widespread deployment of the direct-to-mobile broadcasting in the country. It will go a long way of providing not only in a significant way an experience of high quality entertainment contents, whose consumption in India, as you know, is significantly high, but will also give an experience to a significant population in the country which is not currently using the smartphones. Even though in our country we have about 120 crores or so cell phone subscriptions, you will be surprised to know that still about 350 millions, about 35 crores are using the feature phones. And in India, while we are deploying the 5G, there is a still, in pockets, the 2G. Of course, now 3G is getting shut down, but a large percentage is significantly 4G. Of course, simultaneously with the 5G. So all mobile technologies are simultaneously operating in different parts of the country. And we have about 30 crores feature phones as well. So in our country, while we have 4G and 5G, the number of smartphone users are still about 50% or less. And therefore, a significant population which is using the feature phones will get immensely benefited by technologies such as direct-to-mobile broadcasting, driving the consumption of the television entertainments and several other applications. We have a distinguished panel today, so I don't want to take the time, off from this. But all I would like to say is that we are very delighted that India can really take a leadership role in proliferating the direct-to-mobile broadcasting and offer an experience of entertainment, education, and several other services to a wide cross-section of the country's populations, irrespective of whether they are using feature phones or whether they are using smartphones, or whether they are using big televisions, whether they are using 3G or 4G or 5G or the upcoming 6G. We can have a direct-to-mobile broadcasting radio technologies connected to any networks of future, just like in the same way where the Wi-Fi will get connected to the 6G networks. So thank you very much for inviting me for this, and we can discuss further in the panel discussions.
Over to Gunjan.
Thank you so much. And as always, it's very difficult to set the context after Abhay sir has spoken, because he tends to make it so simple and so clear that the context is right there for the audience. But I'll still try to summarize, why we are here and what are the key points that we would want to cover before this esteemed panel. So first of all, let me admit that I'm really honored to be moderating this panel. It's a big opportunity. We have stakeholders from every part of the technology. We have people who have pioneered the direct-to-mobile technology that Abhay sir spoke about. We have Chris, who's really taking this ahead. We have a Qualcomm representative who will talk about the chipsets, the hardware, the software. And we have representatives such as Abhay sir and Apur sir who really understand how the government is pushing it and what's the moves and shakes that's happening on the technology side. So this is the right time to get perspectives. We'll try to have 5-7 minutes for the question answer sessions. So please use that time. Just to summarize what Abhay sir said, India, a very, very diverse landscape, right? We are talking about a significantly, we are talking about 140 crore population with an almost 100% tele-density. I've been working in the telecom sector for 20 years. And obviously, back then, and I've been a consultant, when we estimated the number of phones or smartphones, believe me, India has exceeded all of that and exceeded that by a huge margin. It's almost embarrassing to look at the estimates that I had done 10 years back as to how the telecom industry would grow. But that's the growth that we have seen, and that growth doesn't stop. I mean, he talked about, we actually surpassed 30 GB a month. So very young population, very hungry for data, right? So looks like a consumer marketer's paradise, right? But also let's understand that there is a large section of the population, right? 350 million odd subscribers who are on feature phones, right? And they are, to a certain extent, deprived of a lot of entertainment and beyond entertainment services that potentially certain technologies can provide. Our Prime Minister has a very bold vision. We have talked about Sabka Saath, Sabka Vikas, which means that we'll progress and we'll take everybody along as we progress, right? So we'll try to touch that a bit as well. So while it's a consumer marketing's paradise, it's also a bit of a nightmare as to how to cater to this very, very demanding consumer who's consuming at 30 GB, wants really high speeds, and wants it at the lowest price in the world, right? It's after a lot of back and forth that the telecom players finally decided to up the price a bit, and we continue to be the lowest priced, country in the world when it comes to data, right? So that's the context. But without further ado, what we'll try to do is we have a very, very global panel, and I think let's not miss the opportunity of understanding their experiences with what I would say next generation broadcast technologies. Another disclaimer, right? I'm very passionate about one of the technologies that will be spoken about, but I'll try my best to be as neutral as possible. And if I overstep that, someone in the audience, please call it out so that I can get back on track, right? So with that promise, let's understand your experiences, right, of implementing some of these next generation broadcast technologies. And we know South Korea has been a pioneer with one of these, ATSC-3, for example, right? So Victor, why don't you start, and then maybe Chris, you can add on to that.
My name is Victor Lee of MBC. It's a Korean terrestrial broadcaster and public broadcaster, and so I'm very honored to getting invited to this very great conference. Thank you very much. But I prepared my question, my answer by phone. So please, okay. And our MBC, we began offering mobile TV through DMB. DMB is digital multimedia broadcasting in 2006. Currently, we are applying the 83.0 technical standard to transition our terrestrial DTV services to UHD, and also for the mobile TV services also. Considering India's D2M case, it's not exactly the same, but it shares many similarities with our experience with mobile TV via DMB. And I would like to share our insights in response to some these related questions. First, I think the situation in Korea during the introduction of DMB was somewhat similar to India's current telecom environment. But at that time, Korea was seeing a surge in demand for watching videos on mobile phones as various internet-based and mobile games were becoming popular. But at the time, the technology was not that good, and so, however, the telecom networks lacked the capacity to support mobile video services, and telecom operators imposed extremely high fees for video streaming, trying to suppress the market demand. But this became a social issue. So it was during this period that broadcasters launched DMB services, effectively resolving this issue and establishing DMB as a key platform for mobile video consumption. In the early stage of DMB, broadcasters and telecom companies cooperated to rapidly distribute DMB receivers to the market, delivering great benefits to the general public. As a result, I think this can be considered a highly successful case where broadcasters, telecom companies, and the public all benefited. Yes.
Yeah, so
Thank you.
Victor, predominantly driven by pricing and then the value chain cooperating. Chris, how has your experience been with ATSC, and if you can give a bit of a context to that as well.
Sure. So I am the CEO of Sinclair, which is one of the largest broadcasters in the U.S. And in America, next-gen broadcast has been rolling out. It's in about 80% of the country, and we'll do a full conversion over the next few years, as mandated by the FCC. As Abe mentioned, India never went through this transition to digital terrestrial broadcast, which represents a pretty significant opportunity. Just to contrast that to the US, 20% of the population uses over-the-air broadcast today for a regular television on the wall. And because of that, there really is very limited spectrum available in the US for advanced services, for mobile services, for instance, like what we're talking about here. So in the US, we're focused on things that we can do beyond broadcast that use the spectrum that we have available outside of our core business, which is transmitting to televisions on walls. And so those include things like streaming offload. So for high quality sports that need to be in UHD, 4K, they need to have low latency. That's an application that we're focused on in the US. Enhanced GPS, where we can send out an enhancement layer to devices and improve the accuracy of GPS from 3 meters down to, say, 3 centimeters. A backup to GPS is also a big application that's being worked on in the US, so that if there was a day without space and GPS was lost, precise time and location could be provided to critical infrastructure, which is very important because so much of the economy, the modern economy, runs on precise time for GPS. And automotive updates is another area that we're doing a lot of work on in the US. Most cars today rely heavily on software updates. In fact, the average Mercedes-Benz consumes 40 gigabits a month in terms of software updates. And so the auto manufacturers are looking for ways to get that off of the cellular networks and onto a more efficient distribution platform. So these are just some of the use cases that are being used and being developed in the US for next-gen broadcast. But as I mentioned earlier, and Abe mentioned, there is a very unique opportunity in India to leapfrog the rest of the world. So all the applications that I just mentioned that are being worked on in the US are applications that are applicable for India. But because of the availability of spectrum, because terrestrial digital broadcasting was never really fully rolled out in this country, mobile video services can be a core part of what is offered here. And the fact that you've got over 300 million people still relying on things like feature phones don't have robust video to their handsets is a huge opportunity for this country to distribute extensive amounts of video, which the plan for D2M here in this country is to do that on a free ad-supported basis, so no cost to the consumer. And that's what I think is so exciting about the opportunity for next generation broadcast here in India. And as also was mentioned, with indigenous technology that was developed here in India on a mobile basis.
Yeah, that really sounds exciting, especially because you touched upon how it can be provided at low cost, and we are talking about a certain section which really does not subscribe to smartphones yet, right? Vinosh, any perspectives from your side on experience with any of these next generation technologies, and what has that been?
Sure. Thanks, Kunjan, and good morning. So my name is Vinosh. I lead the technical standards engagement for Qualcomm in India. So one of the main jobs I actually play is doing standards interpretation and also looking into the regulation and other stuff, right? So I think most of the people in the room know that we had a solution called MediaFlow back in 2010. We were like one of the first broadcasters based out in the US trying to do this service. But then soon we figured out that, it's not a scalable thing. Because if you are bringing in a new device and then trying to say that, hey, I will offer a service in there, it's just arrogance, right? We learned it the hard way, $2 billion lost, and then we realized, okay, we are shutting it down. And then we realized that, the only way probably you are going to scale is to get into a technology which is already in the hands of the customer. So we then took a standards-based route where, for example, the customer as well as the ecosystem driver are central to it. And the approach we took after very cautious cost-benefit analysis is that if you want to get into a mobile, it has to be a mobile technology. It cannot be like a separate technology. Because if it is a separate technology, then it's like two radios active, right? The market will determine, which one will succeed and which one will fail. The second aspect is we have also been doing this direct-to-device for quite some time now, right? So if you had been to India Mobile Congress last year, we made a demo with BSNL and Viasat, which was about getting satellite services onto a phone, right? And it was possible to do with the public broadcaster because it was a technology which was already there, meaning the cell technology, right? So our philosophy had been that, hey, there are services. There is satellite service, there is broadcast service, there is other services, and that those are established industries, meaning there is a way of somebody making a revenue out of it, because revenue is needed for more investment. So the BSNL example and the Viasat example, it was a satellite service. But then it was the mobile core, and then it was brought into the same handset which you and I are using today. Right? So our philosophy had been that, unless you put the customer in the front and the service provider, it's going to be tricky, right? And the reason I also mentioned regulation is that, at least in a lot of geographies, things like, authentication, things like security-related enablement, it's all critical. And that comes if and when you are connected to the core. In its absence, you can do fantastic things, but it will be like a proprietary solution, right? So we are advocates of 5G broadcast, at least on the physical layer. But again, from the service layer perspective, there's no difference. We have evaluated it. We have also talked to Sinclair on a different avenue and others. Their service layer is fantastic. But there are differences in the way, you can actually enable it in devices.
So I think Vinosh touched upon two very important points, and maybe I'll throw it at the panelists, right? One is, Chris, how do you see enabling this or getting over the customer hurdles, right? What are the hurdles that you see for adoption when it comes to direct to mobile, and what could be the enablers in place? And then maybe Madeline will talk about certain standards, and Abhay sir and Apur sir, you can talk about that as well.
Sure. So as was mentioned earlier by Abhay, the indigenously created mobile technologies have solved the device problem. Yep. And in fact, we had there was a booth here today that you could actually get your hands on phones that have D2M integrated. And so it's a really important point, and having that part of the equation solved is very important. And in terms of what the value proposition, why people would want to get a phone that can tap into this broadcast spectrum, which, by the way, no matter what technology you use, you have to have a new device because current phones do not tune in to the broadcast spectrum. The value proposition needs to be there from a consumer perspective. And so the easy way for, at least that I can convey to people, is it's essentially like free dish for mobile in terms of what the value proposition is for the consumer. And as we've seen in this country, free dish has been an incredible success from a television perspective. If you overlay that model on mobile, and you're talking about over 1 billion mobile users versus 200 million TV households, we think it's an incredibly strong value proposition for a consumer to get a device that can use this.
Yeah, and I mean, it's fantastic to know that it's something which has been tested because the proof really lies in the pudding, and that pudding looks like has been, tasty for the consumer. Abhay sir, you would want to add anything on that, especially in the Indian context? Any hurdles you see, and how has that been overcome, or we are on the path to overcoming that?
One of the hurdles currently is the availability of the devices. Now, when Vinosh says that, the 5G broadcast, but it doesn't mean I have a 5G phone, but it doesn't have today the broadcast. So therefore, the availability of the devices is one of the major hurdles. Whether you follow 5G broadcast or whether you follow any other standard like ATSC or something, it has to come to the devices. And I think, as was mentioned, this is getting addressed now because the device ecosystem is now becoming available. Secondly, I think, as Vinosh mentioned, the core network will remain the same, whether it is 5G or 6G, it doesn't matter. Now, regarding different radio heads, whether it gets integrated into cell phone or whether it is a different radio technology, actually the 3GPP standards, of the mobile technology provides a mechanism for that. Because today, even now in my cell phone, you have a Wi-Fi, which is different than, so even in today, my cell phone, I have a 5G, I have a 4G. If 5G radio is not there, I can fall back to 4G. And if I have a Wi-Fi, I can get connected to Wi-Fi, which is not a mobile technology. So you could have a Wi-Fi also. So actually the evolution of the cellular technology is happening in a way where radio technology should be separated from the core networks. In fact, that, that decoupling is actually good for the radio technologies to evolve independently for developing technologies which are good from the point of view of using the radio spectrum, and the core and the service networks to evolve separately to provide, a good service delivery to the customers. And the glue between different radios, whether it is Wi-Fi, whether it is TV broadcast, or whether it is 4G, 5G, 6G, tomorrow it could be satellite, there could be like drone. They should evolve independently to connect. And I think from as a communications network professor, I will actually advocate this, because this decoupling approach with an integrated layer gives you an opportunity to evolve those technologies independently, actually, and yet work in an integrated fashion. So I think, I think, yes, I agree, a standards-based approach is needed, whether it is 5G broadcast or whether it is ATSC or any other standards, that can be debated. But a standards-based approach is needed. An approach which connected to a common core networks is definitely required, and device ecosystem needs to be available. And today, I think we are now happy to say that device ecosystem will maybe come up in various standards. But today, even in the 5G broadcast is not available in 5G phones. So I think that remains.
Yeah, and I think given the size and scale we are talking about in the country, technology will find its way as long as the consumer is up for it, which I think multiple experiments and tests and data shows that there is a lot of demand for something like this. We've talked a lot about industry standards, Madeline. How do you see that playing in the US and especially contextualized to India? What's the role you think industry standards would play to propagate or not propagate some of these technologies?
Yeah, thank you very much, sir. My name is Madeline Noland. I'm president of ATSC, which is an international standards development organization. We have members from all over the world, and as Victor mentioned, our standards are deployed all over the world. In fact, we have Sinclair as a member, we have Qualcomm as a member, we have Korea Broadcast Association as a member. And so it's a really exciting thing. And I think one of the important responses to your question is, what are some of the challenges? Well, I would actually say that the open standards are not one of your challenges. I think it's been terrific the way the membership of ATSC has come together to develop a standard that is very good for mobile. And so having that open standard available, I think, helps to open the doors and make things as easy as possible for the marketplace to develop. At the same time, I think it's extremely important for a technology standards association to be able to be reactive to the marketplace as it starts to use your standard. And a good example, I think, with ATSC is what's happened in Brazil, where they have just launched ATSC3 services. In fact, they lit up last week. They have 17,000 television stations in Brazil, and so it's a very big deal for them. But boy, they came to ATSC and said, we want MIMO and LDM and channel bonding, and we want to be able to do them all at once, and we want reuse one, and. And so ATSC was quickly turning around these requirements into standards as fast as we could, and they're very, very pleased with the outcome. So I think about each country has its own specific use cases. India will certainly be the same, having very unique use cases within the world. And to have a standards organization that is nimble and responsive and has the breadth of membership and expertise to be able to respond to these requests quickly, effectively, and push out the open standard in an improved fashion for the Indian country, for the Indian people, is going to be extremely important going forward. So we look forward to these opportunities. There's one thing about engineers, they love a good problem. We need this. Oh, you do? All right. So they get excited, and we're really looking forward to adjusting the standard in any way necessary for the Indian direct-to-mobile use case if need be. Thanks.
Yeah, and engineers in India are always up for challenges such as that.
Yes, and IIT Bombay is also a member of ATSC, so Tejas Networks, Tata, and so we really look forward to that sort of assistance from the indigenous engineers in this country.
Awesome. So what we've clearly understood, I think, is that there is this technology coming. There is no stopping. There is a large consumer demand, right, when it comes to next generation broadcast technologies. There is a section of the population which is probably devoid of some of this entertainment, etc., and they would be significant consumers for it. We need devices which can fulfill this. We need a standards organization which is nimble, which is agile, and which can be catered to. I think what will also be interesting to understand, maybe Apoorv sir, is that beyond entertainment, beyond sports, right? What are the various use cases that one can look at, which is very exciting and which again finds a lot of desirability in the market?
I think the engineers have spoken a lot about the standards, so I'll speak from the perspective of the government and as a customer. After information and broadcast, I mean, a lot of people have spoken about 350 million people not having access to smartphones and about 850 million having access to smartphones. And as if it is only the 350 million who will be the target audience for direct to mobile. Now, after information and broadcasting as secretary, I moved to Department of Health, Ministry of Health. And during my visits to rural areas, because there are ASHA workers who look after the health of each and every individual in the country, there are about 28 or 29 apps, different apps, something for TB, something for communicable diseases, something for something else. There are 29 apps which an ASHA worker is required to fill the data of an individual on. And it is being filled on a daily continuous basis. During my visits to rural areas, there is not even a single place, whether in Maharashtra, whether in Bihar, whether in Odisha, whether those apps could be opened in front of me. It was always buffering. So this speed, I think this itself is a myth that we have 4G, 5G enabled everywhere in the country. Our perspective is more conditioned towards Delhi and Mumbai. It is not there in other parts of the country. So even if you have a smartphone in other parts of the country, it is not possible to access HD networks, whatever one may say, 4K is out of question. So this use case for direct to mobile exists, I think, everywhere, and it is much bigger than just accessing the non-smartphones, non-feature phones. Secondly, the second aspect is that on the device, network itself. See, when I was Secretary INB, there was one major dispute between FM channels and others. Earlier, if one would recollect that all the mobile phones had a FM feature, and there was a chip or probably some technology which would allow FM, which is a direct-to-mobile broadcast, to be played on the mobile. But the mobile manufacturers turned that off, and now none of the phones has a FM capability. I mean, you as a consumer cannot play FM, and you are perforce expected to stream music on your mobile phone. So something similar probably plays out in the technology space also. There are people who would like that the data should be consumed, but we have to look at the national perspective. What is good for the nation? In what way we can protect the channels, which is very scarce. So that is what we have to look at, how the national perspective is served. The third thing is that TV. We have about 200 million TV homes. But if you look at the statistics, 98% of our homes are single TV homes. And in a single TV home, what is watched on TV is decided by the eldest in the household. And we are a patriarchal society. So if the father wants to watch cricket, everybody watches cricket. So that is how it works. But then, like for example, in the last budget, the Prime Minister is very keen that education should be there, and 200 Gyanwani channels were approved to be launched through BISAC, multilingual channels, 12 for each class, and 200 channels were to be launched. Now, who will watch that if the direct-to-mobile broadcast is there and the mother wants to watch a soap opera or the father wants to watch cricket? What do the children do? So I think that use case also exists because we have to have, if it is there on the mobile, then because mobile is ubiquitous, there are almost a billion mobile, more than a billion. Smartphones itself is 850 million. So everybody can watch D2 direct-to-mobile broadcast. So as regards the various technologies, when I was Secretary INB, Sinclair had also approached and Qualcomm had also approached, and we had said that we should do the pilot for both. Whosoever wants to do a pilot, we should do, and then whatever is acceptable, then we will go ahead with that. There are, the terrestrial spectrum is available with Prasar Bharati. In 19 cities, it is already launched, but there are no takers for direct terrestrial broadcast. But the same spectrum can be easily used. So we can do the pilot there. Qualcomm wants to do, but there, of course, it will require standards to be set in the 3GPP, which will take its own time. So whosoever wins, that is okay, but we have to look at our national interests. Thank you.
Thank you, Apur sir. Those are, very contextual, excellent points made, and it does bring memories of when my parents visit from Delhi. I do have to go back to my mobile because the TV is really occupied by them. So that's absolutely right, reflecting back. A question to you, Chris and Vinod, like while there is a lot of desirability in the market, there is a significant experimentation which has been successful. We see a significant push, I would say, from the government, a vision actually attached to it, right? Now, all this has to be commercially viable, right? And how do you see the investments panning out? How do you see this funding happen? And, if you could just give a perspective on that.
As we talked about, we think the consumer proposition in terms of what I'll call free dish for mobile is very, very strong. And the advantage that you have on the build-out side is that it doesn't need to be a very dense network. At the end of the day, a one-to-many network, which is what broadcast is, can be very cost-effectively built out across the country. And then with a strong value proposition on the other side for the consumer, we think the revenue potential is quite significant. So we think this project will be easily funded. And for whomever ends up being part of the public-private partnership, which is being proposed, it will be, I think, a very significant investment opportunity.
Awesome. Vinosh, any perspectives from your experience on that?
Yeah, before I go into that, just a small ice-breaking moment, right? So Apurva ji mentioned about the eldest in the room occupying the TV. Somehow I haven't seen that in my place. It's like always the kid in the room deciding, what cartoon we need to watch. So we seem to be dealing with outdated data in here, just to talk about, right? Okay, so on this question, Gunjan, so what's happening now is there is an ecosystem being driven by a certain region, to be more specific, Europe. The broadcasters in Europe are actually leading the story on how to actually migrate from DVB to the next generation broadcast technology. So in terms of investment, they have identified the investment. They have identified business models based on which they will be able to monetize it over years, not immediate thing. And they also have a roadmap with the ecosystem players, mainly the network infrastructure provider and the device maker, based on which they have announced publicly that in 2027, they are moving away from DVB to 5G broadcast services, right? And again, it was a carefully drafted thing because they know for sure that their revenue comes from DVB. So the model Europe is pursuing is it will be DVB in the service layer, the cellular core for actually managing the service, and then the 3GPP physical layer, which will be actually delivering, right? And if you look into the OEM perspective, almost every dominant player has some partnership going on with these broadcasters. And so there is a cadence and the timeline based on which, it will actually happen. So our understanding is this is now a customer-driven engagement. It's not looking for a state funding to come in based on which it will go. A customer has done the cost-benefit analysis. He knows that, this is the steps and bounds based on which, he'll have to pass and then make money out of it. And then the market will decide how that thing will go. So
Thank you, Vinosh. And I think what we are saying is that the technology is bound to happen, the next generation broadcast technology. It's the market which will decide how it really pans out. The ecosystem will get in place, the funding would happen, the industry would put its act together, the regulator would support, the government would support. But while I stopped doing this after I did my mobile extrapolation and all those estimates that I had made 10 years back really fall, were 1/10 of how it really happened. But a minute on, how do you see this really pan out in India, right? Like a bit of a crystal ball gazing next 3 to 5 years. How do you see this grow in India? What's the roadmap like? Apur sir, Abhay sir, maybe we can start with you.
As I said, that direct to mobile technology, it has a tremendous scope here because we have more than 1 billion phones and only about 200 million TV homes, of which 98% are single TV. So once we have a direct to mobile broadcast, so that will serve many purposes, not just entertainment, there can be security alerts, which a national alert system, that is again a priority, which the Department of Telecom has been looking at. That can directly happen. education, as I said, health itself, I mean, there are so many aspects which can happen on a direct to mobile if we adopt it. And regarding the investment which you said, because if we do a pilot, I don't think we were envisaging any investment from the government in that. The only thing was that the spectrum, which is today lying unused with Prasar Bharati, would be used during that pilot. And any other party also which does the pilot, there is no investment per se from the government, but it is only the spectrum which is made available, and then the outcome of that pilot will lead to benefits to our population. I think that was the thinking at that point of time. Thank you.
I think we have a couple of minutes. Any questions from the audience before we summarize? Yeah.
A small comment and a question, and that is more addressed to you, Mr. Apurva. That is that, and a small comment for you. The days of Europe are over, I'm sorry. The days now come to Asia, because we are going to determine how the world is going to move. As you have seen, that almost all technologies will be tested out in India and other countries, because this is where, when we talk of 1.4 billion people, when we do D2M, we talk of 7 billion people. That is where the technology is going to reach. So it will be global. Europe is a small part of this experiment. So my question to you is that in this direct-to-mobile experiment that the government is encouraging, what is the main concern of the government? Education, critical infrastructure messaging, disaster management, health, etc., or just regulation? That is what I want you to answer, sir.
Nandita, as you mentioned, the use case is there. I mean, use cases, whether it is critical alert system or education or anything, it is not necessarily just entertainment or live cricket. So use case is definitely there. Now the concern is, first, it is because as I think it was mentioned during the technical part of the discussion, that there is a certain level, certain chipset which is required to be there in each mobile. And for that, probably the government will have to give directions. Because as I mentioned in my earlier part, that regarding FM, during when I was Secretary INB, we worked with METI, and an order was issued that henceforth all mobile phones will have to have FM capability. But then there are people who are not really interested in FM capability being there in the mobile phones. So that sort of thing will play out. The conflict will play out, but then definitely, again, as I mentioned, we have to take decisions in our national interest. And in my view, direct to mobile is something which is very much necessary, and that is in our national interest, because it saves a lot of precious spectrum. And the availability goes to, availability today, it is 200 million households. It will go straight away to more than 1 billion people directly. And the broadcasters will also benefit, because their TRPs and their consumption will go much, much higher than what it is today. I mean, you will see a spurt in all the TRP ratings of all the broadcasts.
Thank you. Thank you, sir. I would just like to add one comment about the use cases, ma'am, that you asked about.
Sorry.
They support each other in the sense that if you are using a service just for security, disaster recovery, emergency messaging, etc., nobody's going to be there when the emergency happens. You have to also have cricket, because if you have the entertainment services, people, oh, I love this service, it's on my phone, I'm going to use it every day. And then when something happens, they're there on the platform. And what happens is, if you don't have the entertainment services or the things that people like and use every day, then when something really happens, they're not there. And the service withers and dies because it doesn't have the kind of commercial and entertainment and daily appeal in people's lives. So I think that these use cases are very closely related. You have the
No
entertainment,
denying.
and
No
then you add
denying.
that. Yes.
No denying.
Yes.
No denying. A child to be educated, you start with entertainment. That is how you get the child to start. No conflict. There is no conflict. And I have one more thing to add here, that it will be a great thing if there is a direct to mobile, standards and all apart. it will free the spectrum for much more. It will free the spectrum for much more, which is not yet been looked at. That is my view.
Thank you, everybody. And I'm told that, okay, time is up. We can have that question maybe outside.
Thank you very much,
Thank you very much,
Gunjan
everybody.
Gupta, for
Thank
this
you.
nice session. Thank you very much.